Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Roisin Hogan. I'm delighted to be here. And what I want to talk a bit today about is using non-traditional and unconventional methods to really create and build a brand and really make an impact. The reason why I want to talk about this subject, there are two reasons really. Firstly, because I believe that this is the future for brands. I don't believe brands are going to grow anymore through the boilerplate traditional templates. I think more unconventional and non-traditional routes are the way forward. There was a recent study done by Silicon Valley, and it showed that consumers are far more compelled by brands that have a great story or a real personal interaction with them rather than the traditional trustworthy corporate brands. Second reason I want to talk about it is because of my own experience with building a brand, which I'm still doing. I have, through necessity, taken more unconventional or non-traditional routes, and I'd just like to share with you those experiences and the impact that they actually had on my brand. So, as I said, my name is Roisin. I'm actually a chartered accountant by profession. I worked in Ernst & Young for 7 years as a financial services auditor and loved my job, very committed to it. And it was actually giving up smoking that was the catalyst for huge change in my life. And I became aware of health and nutrition and what I was putting in my body. And it was actually through this that I started to create my own products. I was working very hard, working really long hours, and I didn't have time to chop vegetables from scratch and marinate proteins and cooking extravaganzas every evening. I wanted someone to have done that for me. But unfortunately, when I would go into the supermarket on a Tuesday evening at 8 o'clock, there was nothing there that was meeting my criteria. And my criteria were to be tasty, filling, healthy, low calorie and low carbohydrate. And that's what I wanted personally in my life at that stage. So I thought, well, do you know what, I'll do it myself. So I was playing around with ingredients and making my own things and bringing them to work. And I came across an article about a miracle vegetable flour. And this was a really innovative ingredient. It's made from a plant grown in Asia. It's a tuber plant which is harvested, roasted, ground into flour, and you can make noodles and pasta from it that are completely carbohydrate-free, gluten-free, and really low calorie. I thought, my God, this is miraculous. I need this product in my life. And I started preparing meals for myself and bring them to work, and my friends and family liked them, and the response was really good. And I thought, do you know what? There actually could be something in this. This could be a really good idea. So, like any good accountant, I did my feasibility study and I did my market research, and it quickly became apparent that there was a gap in the market and there was an unmet need for a product like this in the marketplace. So it came to the point where I then left my safe and successful career as an accountant and pursued my dream of starting my own health food company. And it was after leaving the safety of Ernst & Young and the great support system there and the stationery cupboard and all of the wonderful things that an organisation like that has. And I set up my office in my dining room, and I realised I'm in an industry that I really know very little about, where there's an awful lot of competitors, and I really need to differentiate myself and do something that will really compel consumers and retailers to be interested and aware of my product. So I didn't have a marketing spend, I didn't have an advertising budget, so necessity drove me to use unconventional methods to really get awareness for me and my product. And I was sitting watching television one day when an ad came on the BBC, and it said, "Are you an entrepreneur?" And I thought, yes, I am. And it said, "Do you have a great business idea?" And I was like, yes, I do. It said, "You should go on The Apprentice with Alan Sugar on BBC One." And I thought, that's exactly what I should do. And this was the first of my unconventional choices in getting awareness for myself and my product. So I went over to the UK and I competed on The Apprentice on BBC One for 12 weeks on primetime television and reaching 8.5 million people. And this created a really great platform from which to launch my product. And also to generate awareness around myself and my brand and having those interlinked. So there were really good media opportunities, really good national press nationwide in Ireland and in the UK. But what I really needed to do was to create brand distinctiveness in order for me to really capitalise on those opportunities. And the way I did this was through our packaging. Instead of going with the traditional ready meal packaging of a tray and a sleeve, we went with the traditional ramen pot, which you might get on the streets of Japan if you buy from a street vendor. And I wanted to create the next Starbucks cup. I wanted something that my customers would be really proud to eat from with their colleagues in work or at home on the couch. And the pot actually, it becomes the vessel to eat from. It's your bowl. And this was really important in creating the brand. Then I had to distill all the great messages that I had in my brand. I had all these great things I wanted to talk about. It was low sugar, it was low fat, it was carbohydrate free, it was low calorie, it was a fresh ramen, all these great things. But I realized I really needed to distill those messages to really understand what did my customers want to hear. And what came out of that was that the low carbohydrate vegetable and also our low calorie. We then went on to win the Cial World Tour Award, or the former Cial d'Or Award, last year in Paris. And using those opportunities that came from the platform that I had created from the Apprentice, I was able to talk about my product. So I'm sure you're surprised to see his face here. The reason why I am using Donald Trump as an example is because although he may not know it, he has perhaps unintentionally become an expert at building his brand through unconventional methods. And I think there are things that we can actually learn from him when you look at, he really knows who his audience are. He's really aware and targeted and focused on who he's talking to, his voting base. He doesn't care about the Liberals in New York. He doesn't care about the New York Times. He is speaking to his voting base. He's very focused in his messaging. Number two, he really knows the language of his voters or his consumers. He really knows how to speak to them using broad, sweeping statements and snappy catchphrases like "Make America Great Again." And number three, he knows what channels to communicate to them through. He's not going to get great opinion pieces written about him in the Washington Post, but what he does is circumvent those traditional routes and go straight to his audience via Twitter or at rallies in states where he knows he's going to be talking to those captured audience. So when we're building our brand, where do you start? And this is something that I think, if you're talking about unconventional methods, although social media is now traditional and conventional, it's how you actually use it. And if you look at the number of social media accounts that people have in Ireland, it's incredible. 64% of Irish people have a Facebook account. 29% have a Twitter account, 26% have an Instagram account. These are ready-made customer groups, ready to speak to in a free or very economical way. But what I think is important about choosing the channel is what their customer cohort is. For example, Facebook is a slightly older female cohort, or if you look at YouTube, it is actually the second biggest search engine in the world. So if you have a product or a brand that lends itself to great videos or visuals, and you can get a good video up with the right thumbnail, with the right search phrases, this can be really effective. What I also wanted to talk about here was when you look at these accounts, and if you look at the influencers who hold accounts here, I think there's a real opportunity in an unconventional way. I used to roll my eyes when people would say social media influencers. I don't mean getting David Beckham to post about your product. You know, I follow David Beckham, my niece follows David Beckham, and my dad follows David Beckham, and we are not in the same target market. What I mean is using micro-influencers. So, for example, having somebody who lives in the Midlands with 5,000 followers, but all of those followers are die-hard Weight Watchers attendees. That's my bullseye. They're my target. So finding influencers like those, it can be really, really powerful when building your brand and really speaking to your customers. If you look at their the socioeconomic breakdown, look at their active versus fake versus latent users, and the Irish relevance statistics. There's actually a lot that can be garnered from this. So you decided on your channels, and what I think it's really important is to know your audience. And this can take a while, but knowing who they are, where they live, what they do, and who are you talking to? When are you talking to them? What language are you using? Are you being consistent? I think a really good example of this for me is Facebook is a really powerful tool for us and for the HIRO brand. And customers can directly message me. So on a Sunday evening at 7 o'clock, I'll get a notification saying message comes in with somebody saying, I tried your product today, loved it, going to tell all my friends about it. And I can immediately reply to that person saying, thanks a million, I really appreciate your support, and having that one-on-one, instant, immediate response. And it works as well in, complaint management. If you get a complaint saying I only had one prawn instead of 9, you can then immediately come back to them, and even if it's just a holding message, that's really, really powerful for customers and for building and maintaining brand. So when you go to then build your brand and create these messages and content, I think it's really important to start focusing on the message. So limiting your communication with customers to just a few key points. Like I said before, distilling down all the great things about your brand and your product into those few key bullseye points. Delivering brand message in one sentence, and this took me so long, but what I like to say is at HIRO, we make looking good and feeling great easy. And that took me months and months and months to get to, of a page down to a paragraph, down to 2 sentences, and finally getting down to what the brand essence about my existing and future products are all about. Understanding the brand message hierarchy. Again, this comes back to, we all have wonderful things about our brand and about our products, but what are those key ones that consumers want to hear about? What needs to hit people in the face on the front of your packaging, or what needs to be secondary in the website that's a nice thing to read about? Being consistent with timing and language, I think, is critical. And when it comes to communicating with customers, be it in-store promotions, social media content, updating website and various other materials, being consistent and communicating with your customers at a time that they're actually going to want to be communicated at. So is it on their commute home from work when they're on the train? Is it early in the morning? Really understanding that. Finally, creating a brand Bible to stay on message with the look and feel. And this all ties back to consistency. So that brand Bible, you can have your colour deck of colours that you use in your, whether be it presentations, be it your tasting stand or your hoodies and aprons or your pull-ups, all of those materials. It could be about the font, which font do you use, so you have consistency through that. The expressions, the language, the images that you use, and creating and developing and always maintaining this brand Bible. It's a really, really powerful tool and something that you can share with others in your organisation, that people can really get a feel for what you're all about. So once you've got your message nailed down, what about the content? Well, I put video first, which people might think is a bit odd, but actually what it's looking like is by 2020 that video is going to be the main component of social media. Of course, if you look at Facebook Live, if you look at Twitter Periscope, although that wasn't such a success, but this is the way it's going, is towards video. So again, if your product lends itself to video, it's going to be really powerful. Photos and images are key, which is great when you have packaging that lends itself to people consuming it and being proud and kind of giving them something to brag about on social media. Competitions work really, really well. The prize doesn't have to be huge. It's just tapping into those like and share type competitions online, those in-store competitions. I think user-generated content is really powerful, and it's a great way to get feedback from your customers, but it's also by sharing user-generated content, it's giving you that stamp of credibility from your customers. Everyone loves a good infograph, so if any of the attributes of your product or your brand lends itself to an infograph, it's wonderful. Blog posts, I think, are great, and links. Hashtags particularly can be really good. So if you're looking to see what's trending, making sure it's relevant, because you don't want to fall into a trap of something negative that's trending. But if you look into that and see if you can somehow make that work for your product, it's going to be really powerful. And a detailed social media calendar. I think this is where it ties back into consistency and timing. So if you have your social media calendar planned out a quarter in advance, so if you know Valentine's Day is coming up in a month, what's our hashtag going to be, what's our promotion going to be, what are our images going to be, and having that content ready to go, set up, all you have to do is press go, that can be really, really, it takes the headache out of it, but it also means that there's a consistency and a plan in place. Just giving this example of some of the Instagram that I'm talking about. So if you have packaging that lends itself to it, these are all just hashtags where people have hashtagged our product and put up, and shared, getting likes, getting shares, and how you can start building that momentum through something as simple as your packaging. So thank you very much for your time. I hope that I have shared with you some helpful tips on using unconventional methods to build a brand. I'd welcome any questions.
Thank you very much, Roisin.